I think the Milwaukee Bucks are going to win the world championship. I really do. But they got to be the dumbest team. They make, between stupid fouls and bad shots, not taking advantage of mismatches.
Yo, so it's the 20th of March. The Lakers game starts in like an hour, 2 hours. You're East Coast time, right? Is it 2 hours? It's like starts at 10:30 or something like that.
Yeah, dude. It's 10:30. I'll probably be sleeping before the game starts.
If you get a reaction at the end of this joint, it just means that I woke up and did it the next day. But so forget about the Lakers game. Our guest, our very special guest this evening is Brennan Olin's going to hang out with us for a little bit. You know Brennan from his own work and from podcast and the other stuff he's done. And he was also, I'm pretty sure you were on the Bucks draft, not the NBA draft, right? Is that?
Yep, it was the Bucks one.
Yeah. Well,
not my greatest showing, to be honest, but that's all right.
What was your team? I don't even remember who I drafted now.
I mean, it wasn't that bad, but like I'm not the greatest with history. I mean, I'm in my 20s, so you know how that is. But I got Sidney Moncrief in the beginning, but the part where it drops off a little bit, you know, Larry Sanders was my starting center. So,
did you take Portis too? I feel like everybody with the six. We got punchy by the sixth pick.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't take Portis. I can't remember who did. Someone definitely did though.
I remember Kendrick took Scott Williams. Like, I don't even think it was like the sixth man. I think Kendrick took Scott Williams like fourth or something like that, and we were completely off the rails at that point. I want to know what you have to say about that. Well, let me say this first. Last year, I felt it was pretty brave of you to get ahead on the Dame sucks curve, right? And you did that publicly, and like, yo, man, like a lot of us were thinking it, but I didn't want to say it because, you know, so much of this is like, I kind of believe the cream. I thought the cream was going to rise to the top, and a bunch of other stuff has happened. But just as a framework, as always, say whatever you want to say. But do you feel vindicated by that early take? I know it's kind of been up and down with the whole season, or just anything you want to say about the Bucks season. But I want to acknowledge that off jump. You were complaining about him, I want to say, like before the All-Star game last year.
Yes, definitely. I'm not like super proud of it because I definitely don't want to be right. But I mean, and last year, just the entire season, it was such a mess and it was such a downer of a year. He just, to me, I just don't feel like he's a winning player. And maybe he was, but I think we got him too late. I think he's just a couple years past the point where he can be vintage 70-point game Dame Lillard. So, I mean, and then this year it has been better. I feel like he's been less streaky, but I mean, the same issues come up every single time we play a good team. You know, last year, playoffs, and I asked this question on Twitter and I got a lot of interactions. But I was like, has Dame ever gotten hot? Like, has he ever gotten Steph level hot? And I was totally spacing like, yeah, duh. Game 1 against the Pacers, round 1 last year in the playoffs. But like, other than that,
but like the fact that you forgot that kind of proves a point, right? Like,
well, you want to know, the thing is, he scored 35 in that half. How many did he score in the second half of that game? 0. And what happened in the next game? Yeah, he scored 0 in the second half. And then the next game, I think, is when he got hurt. So my thing with him is just like, I think at this point, he's too old to give it 100% like he did in that Pacers game and still be healthy. I just don't think he can do it anymore. He's too small. And I don't know how you feel, but like, I thought it was going to be this like euphoric feeling. Dame pulls up from 30 feet, drains these shots. And to me, it just never hits like that. I honestly don't think it's going in when he's shooting, which is really surprising because, I mean, he was supposed to be the second greatest shooter of all time behind Steph, you know? But it's like his shots are so difficult, and the reason he's shooting those 30-footers is because he can't get open any closer to the 3-point line. Like, I don't know. It's just been a bummer. I just don't think it's worked out the way any of us envisioned.
So I agree with all that. My kind of take of the week, or kind of my progressive take over the last year. There's a couple things. Anybody who participates with any of the stuff that I've ever put out knows how much I despise flopping and gamesmanship and all this kind of stuff. He's the worst player at it I've ever seen in my life. And I think at a certain point we have to like get away from like the he's being so mistreated by the refs.
Hmm.
And so like in the 90s, and yes, every conversation on this pod or whatever this is comes back to like the 90s, or just the 90s, the 80s, the you know, the aughts, whatever, a long time ago. There was an energy to the gamesmanship of like a Sam Cassell or like a Reggie Miller where, you know, hey, I'm laughing with the refs, I'm yelling with the refs, I'm patting somebody on the butt, I'm flopping, I'm joking with Spike Lee, I'm yelling at Spike Lee. There's like a whole thing, like there was a performance, right? And the first I've been watching ball a long time by the time Reggie Miller kind of blew up post in the first Jordan retirement, but it was to me kind of like a new thing what he was doing. Like he was like this troll. He became this like trolling the Knicks in the Garden like icon, right? Um Dame Lillard is not like, I don't know if he's not a method actor. I don't know what it is, right? But even like his turnovers are like the slowest, laziest. His arms aren't moving fast passes and they're going for dunks the other way. God help me, it's worse than Chris. Like it's worse than Chris a lot of the time. Like his arms are moving so slow to pass. He's telegraphing it. And I think that's actually really a lot of the problem. Like he doesn't flop. Like I can't think of another player that I watch in the league that is less convincing on a foul. And so much of a foul is just tricking a ref into being like, well, I guess I should call that. And it just doesn't ever look like anything. And it's once I kind of identified it, he's like the most stoic flopper. The he's like the Clint Eastwood. He's like the Kevin Costner of like flopping, right? He's just like I'm just like a strong silent type. And so it's like and I don't feel like they yell at the refs. I don't feel like they're demonstrative. It doesn't look like they care if they're winning or losing or not. And I hate all that flopping stuff in the extreme. But like Joel Embiid, as ridiculous as it looks like he got shot from like he looks like he got sniped every single call like when he's playing, right? And it's like Lillard doesn't the only indication that you would even get that he should get a call is that he's kind of doing it on the way up and he's doing like stop like a little bit of a pump. But other than that, I don't even know why. It just looks like that's the way he shoots. And it's that part has started to bother me the most where it's just and then he gets some good layups and he hits some shots, but I think even and sorry, I'm going on a bit of a thing about this. Tell me if you disagree with this. I even feel because, like you said, the shots miss. His shots, I don't feel like, and I assume he's in shape now. And even when he was out of shape,
Hopefully.
right? But even when he was out of shape last year, I don't know how much he looked. I think we thought he was out of shape, and he was probably a little bit more out of shape. But I kind of feel like it was more just we were assuming because the shots weren't going in, and because he wasn't always hustling that it wasn't. But if you look at the trajectory of his shots, he misses like a lot of his misses, his legs aren't into it, and then it skips off the rim or it's short. He doesn't miss like Steph misses, where it's like a couple inches off and it bounces because it's a high trajectory. A lot of his shots are like low trajectory and they just sort of kick off, right? Like
Hmm.
like Derry Bird misses a certain kind of way. Like everybody, you know, Kuzma, it's either going to be way off or it's going to be, you know,
Yeah.
like but like people miss a certain kind of way, and a lot of his misses, it's like his legs, it's like he's not feeling it, and then once you see it, like I can't like not see it anymore.
Yeah. So, couple things. I totally agree with the trajectory of his shots. Like, he doesn't swish very often. I feel like when I when I watch Steph, it's pure. It's a swish when he makes it. It's right on. And Dame, I feel like because he's trying to get him up so quickly, he's coming off a screen. I don't know what it is, but yeah, that low trajectory. I know exactly what you're talking about. They don't it just feels like they don't have a chance to go in when they miss. But the second thing about Dame's flopping, like it's been, I mean, he probably did this his entire career, but it's been 2 straight seasons with the Bucks of not getting that call ever. Like it's maybe one out of every 20 he'll get the free throws, and you're shocked every time. But he still does it every single time. And, I don't know why you wouldn't want to try to change your game if it's not being called, but they're just all conditioned, I think, to try and play for the whistle. And that's one of my it's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, I hate James Harden. I hate Joel Embiid. I hate Trae Young, Marcus Smart. Just name any flopper you can think of. I have no respect for it. That's
Chris Paul, another master.
Chris Paul. Oh my God, one of the worst. Yeah, like this is why I respect Giannis so much. He never flops. He's getting hacked every single time he goes to the hoop. He'll get a little frustrated, but like he's not flopping. I just don't respect that style of play, and I don't get why he still relies on it so much. It's just not as efficient as I thought he was going to be for sure.
And he could really, if he only had to do it twice a game, he could do it once a half and really get under somebody's armpit and sell it. And the officials would be like, well, that's not that big of a deal. Oh, well, he caught me a little bit, but then he wouldn't do it for a while. He could get that call twice a game. But the calls he's getting now, I sometimes feel if Fiserv is loud every once in a while, he gets that call, and then that's when he makes the shot, and that's when they're like, no shot. But like those are the ones that he gets the call for. But I'm sure this hasn't been in any like officials rollout or anything. But well, tell me if you think. I think it's pretty clear. The last 8 years of flopping in the league, maybe 3 years ago they were like, okay, when you catch us with that call, we're gonna wave it off, even though it makes no sense to wave it off. Player X is clearly in the act of shooting, but we're going to be like, oh, you clowned us with this call. I'm immediately waving it off, like before the ball's halfway to the hoop. And I feel like he also gets caught in a lot of those where they say, they blow it and they immediately say on the floor. And you will see that for some other players. But back to the main point. I don't know. I'm dumb, man. And like I said, I'm always kind of a stealth optimist with this kind of stuff. It just feels like if we had a better coach, this is enough to be a top 4 team. Like I really do believe. I'm not just saying that because Lord knows I haven't been saying that necessarily through all these years. Like I didn't really. I don't know if I thought some of those Bledsoe teams were like just the best team in the league. We were just hoping to like go far with Bledsoe and Brogdon. I mean, we were just so like we were happy to be in that Raptor series. That was great. That first Bud year, like that was like all. As sad as how that ended, that was house money. I kind of feel like if you have the top 3 player and then even if like Dame was washed, if he was like washed like Luka sometimes seems washed, you still got Giannis and Dame. And if you had a better coach and I guess I'm not sure. I'm still not sure why we're not better consistently.
Yeah, it's a mystery. I've tried to give Doc the benefit of the doubt and give it some time, but I mean, it's been a year and it's all the same exact issues. I don't know how much of it is just these guys. It's just effort related, and I don't know how much of it is scheme, but it's like it doesn't look good. The offense looks clunky. They haven't been able to maximize Dame and Giannis together. The defense, I don't know what's worse, to be honest. There's games a couple weeks ago when we beat Denver at home. That game, I was watching that first half, and it felt like every single shot the Nuggets were taking was in the paint. And I looked up the shot chart, and I posted it on Twitter too, I think. Literally, they only took like 5 shots outside of the paint, and they were scoring at ease. So it's like we're not guarding the rim. And then a couple weeks later, the game against the Pacers, of course, the Halliburton game winner, that game, we gave up 1 trillion wide open threes.
Yep.
And this happens every time against the Pacers, but they just missed them all night. And we somehow were in position to win that game. And then, of course, the worst person on the planet ends up hitting that shot. But yeah, it's like we can't guard the rim and we can't guard the 3. So, but then at the same time, we're scoring 90 points on offense like the other night. So I don't know, man. They have their stretches where they put it together, like that NBA Cup run. They actually put it together, played great defense. I know the game against the Thunder, that was a lot of luck too. They missed a lot of wide open shots, but they've shown signs that when the games really matter, they can bring it up a notch. But at the same time, they're like 0 and 10 or whatever against the top three teams in the East. So
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
to say. They have the talent, but they're definitely not maximizing it. Yeah. So I don't know where to go with them.
If I would have had a podcast 4 games ago, even after one of the losses 4 games ago, I was gonna, because the whole problem is I'm not mumbling into my phone really anymore, so I can't just dip out. And then if you can't dip out, the moment's passed. But I was gonna say,
Yep.
I was really about to just praise Giannis and be like, dude, these jumpers, I'm so happy with these jumpers because now it seems like he's taking like 5 of them a game and making 2 or 3 of them. And they're not like before. He was kind of taking heat check jumpers, or kind of like coward jumpers. Hey, I need a break, so I'm taking a crazy fadeaway, and usually it wouldn't go in. Although through the years sometimes he'd get hot, but like he would do elbow, he would do like the Portis fadeaway a couple times a year, or every 10 games he'd do it, and it's like, well, that's not a shot. He was taking that mid range, like when he was healthy and like full of energy. He was taking like first quarter pull ups just because hey, I can make this shot. And I was going to come on here and be like, if he could do that and somehow get us to another finals or whatever else, like, because I'm pretty down on his all time rankings, but I was like, that's the kind of thing. Then all of a sudden people say, man, he made all the free throws when it counted against the Suns. And man, he changed. I mean, that's the kind of narrative you need. Man, he changed his game again. He got older. He showed how great he was. And all of a sudden he turned himself into a jump shooter, blah, blah, blah. I'm really into it, him making these free throws and making these jumpers. Like that's always the thing that's really gonna like tickle my fancy or whatever. But then the last 4 or 5 games happened, and frankly, they've been too late. Like I didn't see the second half of the Warriors game. Like it was midnight when the third
Yeah,
quarter.
neither did I.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess I just woke up and people were mad, but it was like whatever to me. I didn't really see the Thunder game too much either. So also I wanted to ask you, because and everybody should still find this if it's still online. I thought maybe last year you had a really charming like podcast where you had like your family on. Really nice. I feel like your mom was on or different people. It was right. Is that correct?
Yep.
And like other family members. I was working in the yard. I was cutting grass and doing something. Listening to it. I was like, oh, that's really cool. But what was revealed in that is that you guys are a Brooke Lopez family. And this has been kind of a tough year for your boy. So how is the Brooke Lopez experience? How is this year working out for y'all with that?
Yeah, big Brooke Lopez and Bobby Portis family. So
Oh, that's right. That's
But
right. That's right.
Bucks,
Oh, I gotta talk about
Bucks
that too.
Twitter,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Buck's Twitter would hate my family. But if you just went and asked the average person, now my family got a little upset that I called them an average Bucks fan because they're more than average. They watch pretty much all the games, so I have to give them more credit than that. The main thing I was going for was they're just not online. They don't have to deal with the horrible stuff that goes on Twitter. Like
Good, decent
so,
people. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. But if you just ask a random person, who's your favorite player? They're probably going to be like Bobby Portis, like mayor of Milwaukee. Bobby, they'll start breaking out into a chant. Like that's just how it is. They love Bobby, and my fiance is a huge Disney fan. She works at Disney, so she loves Brooke Lopez. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a tough year. Brooke, I think this is definitely his last season. No matter what, I think this is his last season with the Bucks. Because he's a free agent, I'm pretty sure after this year, right? Like,
I think so, man.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think they're re-signing him. They already missed the chance of moving him. So it's been tough because in my time watching the Bucks, he's my favorite center that they've ever had. Love Brooke, but yeah, he just can't move. And this is the bigger issue, and it kind of goes with what you were talking about with Giannis's jump shots. Like, I was glad you brought that up because 4 games ago or whatever it was, especially after the Middleton trade, that first stretch where we were playing really well. I think we went 8-1 or whatever it was. I was thinking to myself, wow, I've had so much fun watching this team. And
Yep.
it was like, this is refreshing. I haven't felt like this in a couple of years. And then immediately it just goes to complete crap. And they've been doing this all year. They'll go on a good 10-game
Yeah.
stretch and then a terrible 10-game stretch. But with Brook, he when you have Giannis and all the top three teams in the East, all the top teams in the NBA, they have five guys who can shoot. And Brook, he can shoot, but like not really. He's 34% or whatever he is. Like not a knockdown guy. And when you have Giannis out there and you really only have two other shooters beside him with Dame and Torian Prince, and there's three guys on the court that can't shoot, it turns into a slog. Like, and when Giannis is hitting, it's great, but it's almost like he's so dominant and so singularly talented, like one of the greatest ever at going to the hoop, finishing at the basket, that even though he's making 45% of his mid ranges, they're still never going to guard him. So it doesn't
Right.
even matter that he's making them. The spacing still sucks.
Yep.
So it's like, how is that possible that he can be the best at one thing and fix one of his main flaws, and yet it still doesn't matter?
Yep.
That's kind of how I feel. I just feel hopeless, you know?
I've said for a while, I just want him to embrace his inner heel and his inner thug and just start knocking people down. I think if he just started really knocking people out of the sky, it would just kind of change. At least, maybe there'd be some dirty play for him. I do want to mention this just before I forget. Maybe this was mentioned. I actually listened to a couple of Bucks podcasts today, but I basically kind of don't do that anymore. Listen to Locked On Bucks today, and it's just cool. Whatever. It's a lot of like, this 5-man lineup, this 3-man lineup. Hey, what's the best 5-man lineup? Would you believe it's still Derry Bird? It's kind of interesting, but just also not really how I interact with the game too much.
I
But
haven't
what?
listened to them. Yeah, I haven't listened to any Bucks pods in like a year.
Yeah,
It's really just yours, mine, and the other people. Like Trey, I like listening to Trey, but yeah,
that's been pretty good. That's been pretty good.
yeah,
At some point, like, yeah, just because for the kind of anger of it.
yeah,
It's no shade to anybody else actually either. But the reason I say that is just I don't know what people said about the Portis suspension, but it occurred to me, and maybe everybody said this at the time, is Portis's grandmom died or somebody like that died, and he took 6 games off, but he knew he failed that drug test around Thanksgiving, according to sources. So you would have thought after about 2 games, they were like, hey, why don't we stop this appeal so we can start those 25 games going now? But what happened is he came back, if memory serves, right before the trade deadline, or maybe the game in Charlotte at the deadline that I was at was the first game he came back or something like that. But he came back just to get suspended again. And basically he's known that he had that Toradol suspension since like the first month. Which is crazy that he took like 6 games of PTO when he knew he was staring down the barrel of 25 no matter what. And I would almost blame management more than anybody for that. Or maybe there's something that I just don't understand about the way that works. But because I don't listen to anybody, I don't know if everybody else is saying that. But that's like a crazy wrinkle. Like he's going to come back with 4 games left as opposed to 10 or 8 or whatever it would have been. I'm kind of Bobby neutral. I'm kind of Brooke neutral at this point. Like it's I do think like one of the things I do think for those who are so inclined to still be broken up, like people are still fighting these Chris wars, which is like somebody was doing like the Wizards are 6-4 since they added Middleton or something like that. I'm like,
yep.
is that like and he's playing 20 minutes or whatever? They're like, yeah. I feel like Armin from whatever show that is was like subtweeting me with all this kind of stuff, and I don't know what I don't know what you think about this because actually, I don't particularly mind as much as it's funny to be like you were never a Bucks fan. Like I don't particularly mind if people want to still follow Chris or still kind of root for Chris. I do think it's a little funny when those people immediately dog walk Drew and Brooke and Bobby and all the other Pat. I mean, you can argue there's different levels, but it's not like the championship team is goated. You know, it's basically just Giannis and Chris, and now Chris is gone, and now like. But honestly, like if people want to follow Chris with the Wizards, I don't like. That's cool, man. Like, what? Go in peace. Like, whatever. I don't. You know, I don't. I hope good things for him.
Yeah, I totally get it. Chris had the cult following. They fought for him for years and years and years. And yeah, I don't care. They could follow him too. I think if Giannis left, I'd obviously follow Giannis
Yeah.
and I'd still be a Bucks fan. I'd root for Giannis. I'm not saying, hey, I want Chris to suck, but it is kind of weird. They're like, Wizards are 6-4, Wizards net rating and all this stuff. It's like, all right, he's on the Wizards. Most of the teams they're playing are probably resting their guys because they're playing against the Wizards, and Chris is probably not going to play a back to back. He's probably, so they just forget about all that stuff. And uh, those couple days were something on Twitter. I saw some absolute meltdowns, and we don't have to say any names or anything. Everybody knows who melted down and what was said, but I just can't believe that people were like, I'm done rooting for the Bucks, sell the team, trade Giannis. It's all over because we traded a guy that plays half the games.
It's
And they yeah.
it's now so interesting. Look, I'm super happy that he's gone, but like once he was gone, it was like, hey, he's a great championship player, and I'll forget. Like I actually do feel like it's like, and I have good feelings toward him now that I don't have to watch him turn the ball over. Although I'm watching his ghost and Damian Lillard like do the exact same turnovers,
Yeah.
just like Michael Carter. It's like there was like this virus that Michael Carter Williams gave to Middleton, and then he gave it to Lillard, and it's like we're never going to be done with like these pick sixes thrown like across the court. I feel like Chris was almost like I would you say this is a trolley question, I guess, but like there is a part of me that thinks he's the most popular Wisconsin athlete of the last 30 years. Like I really do think like it was almost like Bucks fans had like this online internet template, and they tried to perfect it with like Tony Snell, but then Tony Snell didn't stick around, and they were trying to do
Yeah.
it with like Inglis, and my Brew Hoop homies were kind of doing it with Dante DiVincenzo, and everybody kind of wanted like a meme player, and then like they took all their knowledge from like Snell and like put it all into Chris, but like then Chris never left, and like I do think like if you're extremely online. I think they love him more than Donald Driver and Rogers and Favre and Yelich and like anybody you could name. I really do think, like I'm joking about it because it's hilarious to me, but like I really do think he's one of the most beloved Bucks. So yeah, that stuff was performative, but I think they really did think that he was owed this crazy level of respect. Like Klay Thompson is gone. Like a bunch
Yeah.
of great players are gone. Like obviously
Exactly.
Luca level players got traded. Like Anthony Davis got traded, and it was like no big deal. But like Chris Middleton. So again, go
Yeah.
down this rabbit hole. Prediction wise, man. Because honestly, this is the hater in me, or this is whatever. I still really enjoy this team because honestly, I would always rather watch a team struggle on offense than defense. Because if the problem is we don't play defense, like some of these games where Kuzma looks really good, you can kind of see the vision of it. And I think Trent is a playoff shooter. The problem is I don't think Derry Bird. And like honestly, the super optimist in me would say that if you take Torian Prince and kind of put him on the bench or reduce his load, I think if you could play defense for 7 games, there will be enough games where Giannis is Giannis or everybody gets hot. And maybe we think Dame sucks. He should be hot one game. He should give you one game one against the Pacers. We should beat almost every team, but the Celtics or maybe the Cavs that way. Like honestly, like Cavs kind of outclassed us, but me personally, I'm not sweating so much that we haven't beaten anybody because this version of the team would have like just law of averages, we'd have beat the Celtics or we'd have beaten some other teams over the course of 82 games. But at the same time, we're not that good. I have great optimism, but also we're not that good. But just frankly, for me, like I enjoy watching this team a lot more because I'm rooting so hard for it to work now because I'm rooting for effort,
Mhm.
as opposed to just, hey, let's make 4 out of 6 threes. And like, I mean, that's basically like what we had last year with, with what's his name who went to the Pistons, like with, well, all the other gunner shooter kind of guys. So, but I mean, like I can't predict a championship. Like I can't really predict a championship. I mean, are we thinking second round? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think we're very clearly outside of the top three. We're gonna be 4, 5, 6. I mean, it. Who knows where we're gonna end up seating wise? We won't fall 7, 8, 9, or 10. So thankfully we won't. I mean, unless we just absolutely collapsed. But thankfully no playing game. But I think the top three
Yeah.
teams in the East, Cleveland, Boston, and New York, are all just better than us. And I think so. If we drop to 6 and have to play New York round one, I think we lose first round, and then it's on to the rebuild. Honestly, we'll see, like mini rebuild, because I don't think they just trade everybody, trade Giannis, but I do think they'd be very highly considering trading Dame. But I think if we stay 4, 5, I feel comfortable that in a rematch with Indiana, we'd beat them. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe.
They make those games real
Maybe.
interesting, but I just feel like if you have Giannis going full bore for a whole playoff series and he doesn't get hurt and everybody's healthy, that's what we need. Everybody's healthy. I do think we'd beat Indiana. I think we'd beat the Pistons. I think they're still a little too young. But like any of those top three teams, I think they are just a class above us. However, like you were saying, anything could happen. Like we do have Dame and Giannis, and they are still superstars. Dame not so much every night, but like you're saying, he can give us one of those 35-point games like round one against the Pacers. I do agree. I'm not super confident with AJ Green. He's one of my favorites. I like him a lot. I like having shooters out there, but he goes cold, and our issue, especially compared to all these other top teams, is we just cannot get guys open looks.
Yeah.
Some games we do, but when the competition raises, when we're playing a better defensive team, it just feels like nobody's open, and it's all on Giannis to go bully his way to the hoop, or it's all on Dame to knife his way to the paint, and nobody gets open. Those guys are kind of limited. I do like Gary Trent. He's been a nice upgrade. I think he's been an upgrade over Beasley,
Yeah, bees. Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
Agree.
But like all these other teams just get wide open shots, and it's so easy. For us, it's a slog. It's difficult. Really funny story. Like a couple nights ago, it was against the Cavs, the last game we played against the Cavs. I'm sitting here watching. My fiance never really watches. She's a Bucks fan, but like she's always doing her own thing. And the sequence happens, and I'm like, you got to watch this. This is the story of the game. So Bucks come down the court. Giannis posts up. Takes about 5 seconds for them to get the ball to him. Giannis is just backing down his defender, powering through, and he just slams it home on the guy. 2 points. Great. Took about 20 of the 24 seconds on the shot clock. Nobody else really touched the ball, but I mean, it was a great play by him. Cleveland comes down the other end. In about 5 seconds, they set a high screen.
Yep.
Point guard dishes it to the center. Center dots it to the corner. Wide open three.
Yep.
Just like that. They score three. We score two. They did it within 5 seconds, and it was extremely easy. Giannis had to take about 20 seconds to just bulldoze through this guy and just power it home. But like, that's the issue. The Celtics are getting up 63s. Everything just seems so much easier for these other teams. That's my issue. So I think they're a first round. If they're 4 or 5, I think they win the first round, lose second round. If they fall to 6, I think we're out in the first round.
What's embarrassing, and there's things you kind of know, but you don't. Like, ironically, you see it well. Like when I think I saw a Twitter video, or maybe I was watching the game, and like Donis and Yame did like a pick and roll, and it's like a perfectly executed pick and roll for a dunk. And A, you're like, oh, we've never seen that. And then like B, you're like, well, they showed like a reverse camera and reverse angle, and it was like, oh, Dame really had like a pretty open window to make this play, but it just seems so hard, At least like KPJ has been coming with a lot of turnovers too, but he has far more of like, and he was kind of doing the Harden lobs or like the Trae Young kind of lobs to Capella kind of guys to the streakers, and we were also like, oh, we've actually never really seen too much of that. I mean,
Yep.
Giannis and Chris did some of that some of the time, but it was always a little bit different because it was. I don't want to say like that never happened, but that was kind of a little bit more organic because Chris was always sort of looking for a middle range, but obviously Chris was so tall that sometimes that was real easy. Every
Yeah, I
once
think
in
it
a
was
while,
the height.
yeah, every
Yeah.
once in a while somebody gets those to Brooke,
Hmm.
but it's like it's almost like they have to think and do it. It's not organic where other teams are just it's just muscle memory, like you said. It's just
Yeah.
pass, fake pass, open corner three, and we just there's no intentionality what we do. And actually, first of all, how did Chris Haynes get that story? It's like no one will ever know how Chris Haynes got that story. But like if they are beefing on like what the intentionality of it is, it's like okay, well I guess that's good that they're like trying to figure out a strategy, but
Yeah. At least they're trying. But at the same time, it's like Dame has made these same complaints over and over for the last 2 years. It's like, you gotta let me take over. Dude, just take over then. Do
just
it.
take
Just
over.
do it. Why haven't you done it? I just don't think he can anymore. It's just annoying to hear the same thing over and over again.
I think we've been this is another hobby horse of mine, but like we've been robbed. The Kobe Mafia has stopped a lot of conversations about like it's like politics. Like in a brilliant political maneuvering, we don't think of Steph Curry as a shooting guard, so people can't say, "Would you rather have Steph than Kobe?" Because obviously, there's sometimes you would, and there's a lot of times you wouldn't. But we don't have that conversation like that. You always beef up, right? So it's like, "Hey, Kobe's better than LeBron, and Kobe's like the third best player," and people do all that kind of stuff. But like, even Steph can't do it all the time, right? Every time Steph's won a championship, an incredible, like incredible shooter. Like again, if I had my team to play the Aliens, he'd at least be in the top 8, like of all time. Like of all time, I don't think he's the 8th best player of all time. But if I had a team to beat the Aliens and the Predators, like Steph Curry is like on that team. He's at least a 6 man because like he's the best shooter of all time.
Yeah.
But he's not. But he's not a point guard. Why are we comparing him to Magic Johnson? It's like a completely different thing, right? And maybe it is that like we were dumb and thinking he was like Dame was 90% of them, and maybe it's like less. But also, like, is that 10% that much? Because like we know Steph has Draymond, who's like one of the smartest, dirtiest. Like we don't have a Draymond.
No, that'd be great.
Like we have Kyle Kuzma. It's not exactly the same thing, right? And so I again, I can deal with being wrong, but it's like, dude, we followed the league. Like I feel like we watched a lot of Dame Lillard, and it
I watched, so they had a stretch there where the Blazers would kept matching up against the KD Warriors and they'd
yeah.
get swept in the first round. But I'd watch those games and I'd be rooting so hard for the Blazers because like everybody hated the Warriors back then. And Dame was incredible. Like those games were insane. He kept them around and they ended up getting swept both times. But like that's the Dame I thought we were getting. And I just think it was a couple of years too late.
This is not exactly the same thing. I feel like the shooting in the bubble gets completely accrued to like Anthony Davis. And these players did other great things, but like Jamal Murray, Devin Booker, and Dame also went nuclear in the bubble. And I forget if
Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan
Yep.
Mitchell. And this was like mid COVID. We were in Denver watching at like a ski lodge, like an off season ski lodge, watching one of these crazy. It was like the craziest. Who would the Nuggets have been playing? And I don't remember that. Yes, I remember being mad because that was the series that the Bucks like split the first two with the Magic in the pandemic was.
Yeah. Lost game one.
And so whoever the Canadian was shooting against, like they were just crazy games. Like, and I don't know, like I forget if maybe the Blazers were like doing the playing thing to get to the tournament and they didn't. But like everybody was shooting bananas, right?
Yeah.
Like there were like three or four of those guards who were great players who were also shooting great. but we kind of remember it as like, hey, Anthony Davis couldn't miss, and Giannis touched Jimmy Butler's oblique, and so blah blah blah. Which also is the thing too. Like, honestly, dude, I'm scared for Giannis now. I more than us winning a championship, more than us making to the finals. I just don't want him to do anything dumb at the end of games anymore. And we've kind of we've been protected from that a little bit. Like we were protected from it because Chris took all the shots at the end of games. And then once him and Drew were equals, like then there was like him and Drew were trading, taking shots at the end of those games. I just, I'm kind of protective of his legacy in a way where I don't want to have, hey, because it's like, yeah, he's been hurt the last couple of years, but also like, so we can't blame a lot of that on Giannis. And I really like that stuff. Like, I didn't think he fouled what's his name at the end of that Pacers game. And I think that's a ridiculous whistle, but also
Yeah.
like there was no fear for him. I just didn't want him around the ball, right?
Yeah, no reason.
We've seen it so many times. And so
Mhm.
even if he leaves at this point, I kind of just want him to get away clean so I can have good feelings about this whole thing, as opposed to just being like, it's your fault we had Adrian Griffin, and then it's your fault we didn't stick with Adrian Griffin, and now Doc. And like, there's a lot of stuff and steps to success and all the stuff we're going to criticize later. I kind of, if this Bucks thing like ends, I at least want to delude myself into thinking it was mostly fun and not, I don't know. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, I totally get it. I think the love for Giannis would transcend any negativity if he does end up leaving. I mean, that's probably optimistic, and I'm being hopeful about that. I hope he never leaves, but I do think he's like extremely loved. We've been going to battle for that guy for over 12 years now. So I don't know. That would suck. That would really suck if he ends up leaving and it turns negative. That's probably the last thing I want. I would rather us not win another championship. And as I'm saying it, I don't know how I feel. But it's like, would you rather have Giannis finish his career as a Buck, never play in another uniform, or would you take one more championship and then he bounces in a bad way a couple years later?
I'd take the championship, but it's a good question, and it's closer
Yeah.
than people think, because I think, and I was alive for 96 Packers. Like, 96 Packers was my first ring. And that was great, but even then, like, obviously, like, I like talking about the games. I like experiencing the games. I think a lot of Bucks fans, and everybody can experience stuff the way they experience. And I wasn't in the Deer District partying after we won, so part of it wasn't muted for me. But like, I think a lot of younger people kind of gaslight themselves into being like, this is supposed to be the most special thing in the world, and it is the most special thing in the world. And by the way, and like and it was great. Don't get me wrong, but like, then there's the next day, and like, I'm just happy talking about this stuff, and I was happy thinking, and then I'm thinking about, is he better than Nowitzki now, and all this kind of stuff. But like, it kept going, like, it was really special. But people were like, this means Chris is a Hall of Famer, and this is great. And I think a lot of people were like sort of intentionally like incepting themselves into thinking like it was like the most gratifying moment of their life, and it's like, if it was, it's like, good for you. But so when you ask that question, I'm like, I don't so much. I want him to be at this point. He's had a greater Bucks career than Kareem. This is the Reggie White thing again. So let me answer your question by not answering your question and put it in another. Like, I don't think you can make a credible case that Reggie White is the greatest Packer of all time, but you can also make a case that Reggie White is like a top 3 defender of all time. And so there's this weird kind of thing. Like, if you take Don Hudson out of it, right? You can argue that no one's ever played football for the Packers better than Reggie White, like tier wise. And so Giannis is clearly the greatest Buck of all time, but Kareem was a better player. And if Giannis only goes to one finals and wins it, there's a part of me that's going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not explaining in the right kind of way. I want him to clearly be the greatest Buck of all time.
Yeah.
it's a sports movie thing. Like this is what's being risked. I'd like these two knuckleheads to get it together, to figure it out, to have a sprint, and to at least make a good show. Like take the Celtics to 7 or take the Cavs to 7. I'd like them to actually look like great players,
Yeah.
not to, hey, you played the Pacers and you won the first game, but then you lost the next three, like that kind of crap. Like I don't know. What would you do? Answer your own question. Which one would you take?
I think the reason I was quickly gonna say I'd rather have Giannis just be in a Bucks uniform forever and not get another championship is because I don't believe we're going to win another championship. I think the ship has kind of sailed on that. So that's why I think I would say that. But I mean, and then it's tough. I think another reason is kind of what you were saying. It's like that championship was great. I was in the Deer District. It was great. And I always told myself, I was like, man, the day the Bucks win a championship,
Yep.
there will be tears, you know, it would be like the craziest, most amazing moment. And honestly, it was incredible. Don't get me wrong. But like there were no tears for me. There was no like
Yeah.
it was a great feeling. But I think more so this is the problem with Twitter and media, social media and NBA media. It's like I felt happier that we got a championship because they would finally lay off Giannis for a little bit
Yes. Yes.
than I did like just being happy we won a championship. I was like, oh yes, that bought us a couple of years. It didn't. They were back to hating on him like immediately. But like, yeah, I don't know. The feeling wasn't as great as I thought it would be. Because it is. It's just like the next day. All right, yeah, we're still championships. There's cool videos being posted. That's great. But the moment's kind of over already. But you do get to have the conversations. Like we'll always be able to say, we won a championship. Giannis won a championship. So like, yeah, it's tough. But I think I'd rather have Giannis retire as a Buck and never play for another team. I just hope it doesn't go sour.
Yeah. We've had a really good run. I mean, we've had a better run than we can expect. And he's real, dude. You know this. He's way better in 2025 than I thought he'd be. I thought
Yes.
I was the first one or one of the first ones saying kind of Dwight Howard comps and just kind of general arcs. And it's like, okay, like if you're an incredible athlete, I mean, Bo Jackson, there's been a million people who are incredible athletes. You just thought he'd be the Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade kind of fell apart in a similar kind of way, like Iverson fell apart in some, like everybody who plays that hard.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of precedent. And like Shaq got really heavy, but there's just not a lot of precedent for somebody. And I guess he's hurt. You can say he's hurt every playoff, so maybe there is precedent. But like he can't take off from as far, and he's not doing as many crazy gather dunks and all that. But I'm shocked with how good. That's why I want to be positive. Like if he started making jumpers, he would really have a claim to like. Because the NBA doesn't have a top 10 all time. Like it's all fudge because it's like, who do you want to put in there? It's like naming the top 10 running backs. It's like, all right, so then name another 10. They're just as good as the first 10. It's like there's a million great running, you know. And so, but I think he has a credible claim to be like top 25 if he could like do some more. Resume wise, you could argue he's already there. I mean, it's a billion first team All NBAs. But for me, it just would be cool. That's why I was so hyped. Like the middle, like again, the Middleton thing was gone, but it just whether Kuzma is this guy or not, I just always wanted defenders and shooters because again, theoretically, you can play defense 7 straight games.
Yep.
You could, and then if you're sort of a clutch team, you can win 2 games with offense and 2 games you can kind of steal, you know, and that should be enough if you play enough defense and if you don't foul people, you know, up 3 with like 4 seconds left. I mean, you can still do that, but I don't know, like. That's about it. I mean, I don't know. I feel better talking about. I always feel better talking about it, but I do think it's been this like bizarre roller coaster where Buck's Twitter gets more and more toxic. It's so much less fun than it used to be. I don't know. Do you
Yeah.
feel that way?
Oh yeah,
Was it
definitely.
ever fun?
I think it was fun, but the Bucks weren't very good. So as
Right.
soon as they became good, that's when it went south. But yeah, like I don't know. I so it's funny because we were talking. I remember specifically you guys. It was you and your family kind of doing the pod. Kendrick's on there, your brother, and you were like, what do you think is more important to winning championships, defense or offense? And everybody's like, 60-40.
Yep.
One would say 60-40 offense, the other one 60-40 defense. And I think at the time we were all trying to talk ourselves into it's offense because great offense always beats great defense. And so we trade for Dame, and everybody's like, this is going to put us over the top. And I think we all fell for that. But I think the true answer is defense. And I mean, I'll bring it up again. I think it's crazy because we all kind of know like the Dame trade, every team would do it 100 times out of 100. But if you know everything, knowing everything you know now, would you go back and do that Drew Holiday for Dame Lillard trade again?
No. No, not at all. Absolutely not. No, Nuka, no, no, no. But it was just a thing to do, and this is kind of where I go back to Horst. It's like I can't believe again. I'm probably biased because the thing with Horst is I just couldn't believe that a Bucks front a Wisconsin front office personality in my lifetime was pulling off these like super team trades. Like that's the trade we could never make. Like my whole life, right? That's just the trade we could never pull off, right? Like and it would what would it actually would have been like in a different position, like us getting like first year Knicks Carmelo or something like that, and we're thinking, oh, he's still mellow, and then he's like not mellow, or maybe he's like the third year, whatever the year that it went down. But it was like, wow, we got another blue chip. We got another maybe not tier one if tier one is like five guys, but we got like basically a second team all NBA kind of guy. And it's just shocking to me that he's not close to it, man. Like and any one of those guys in that kind of just gunner class. I mean, I guess Durant's kind of fallen off, but like any one of those guys would have been better. Murray, Booker, obviously Tatum's kind of
Guy,
stepped up.
yeah, sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think the guy we missed on that would have been great was Donovan Mitchell. I
yeah, yeah.
It was a slow start to his Cleveland thing, but it was right around the same time. I can't remember exactly the dates. I think it was a little before the Dame trade, but um, yeah, I think he's the guy we missed on. Like we had at the time we had the assets. We could have probably done it. I mean, we were able to trade Drew for Dame, so we definitely could have gotten Donovan Mitchell. I just think he's younger, more athletic, maybe not quite as high of a ceiling offensively, but the size and the defense makes up for that. I think that's the guy we missed on.
There's multiple plays. There's one at the end of game 7 Nets, and I forget if it's the overtime or if it's regular season, but like there are times, and it didn't seem like there was friction or anything. There's a play where like with maybe this is when we're up against the Nets in the overtime, but whatever the case, and Chris gets the ball, clears out, misses the shot. Either Brooke tips it out to Drew, or Drew just gets it, and then Drew gets the shot, and Chris claps for the ball back, and Drew is like, "No, it's my turn, right?" And then Drew misses or gets fouled or whatever else, and I forget if that's where then we stop. But that was kind of there was a point in the regular season, like Chris wasn't even an All Star in 21. There was a point kind of halfway through that where Drew was like, "Look, I mean, I made the Drew like clutch supercut, like it was pretty long. He was doing a lot of stuff. He was hitting step back threes. He made a lot of big shots."
He did.
And I don't think I mean, ultimately, I guess I only mentioned this because you brought up Drew. Like, I'm at peace with Drew because, like, I never disrespected his defense. And
Yeah.
I was just as frustrated with his layups as anybody else. But I was never like, he sucks, like
No.
how he just wasn't a two. He wasn't a two, and Chris wasn't a two either. And that was just kind of the weird thing about it. But there was like the end of those big games, Drew was taking his floaters also. Like the end of those Hawks games, like they were both like kind of co-equals. But obviously Chris was better than him than offense. But it's like, no, I would to answer your question, no, I wouldn't have made that trade. But it was but it was a trade to make at the time. Like
Yeah. I just think, yeah, exactly. I mean, you couldn't have foreshadowed, you could have maybe thought, oh, Drew's going to end up on the Celtics. But like, who's thinking that when you make that trade? Like, at the time, I was like, there's no way they have all these guys. They just traded for Kristaps. It's like, how are they going to add Drew to this? They have endless money. Do they not have a salary cap? How does this work? But yeah, knowing everything I know now, obviously, I I would like to go back and not do that trade. Maybe potentially move somebody else for a different player, but yeah, I wouldn't do it. Last
I
thing,
Go
one thing
ahead.
I wanted to
Go ahead.
bring up to you,
Yeah, go ahead.
because you had a take on this, is Jimmy Butler. I couldn't figure out how I felt,
Thanks for bringing
but
this
I
up.
I
Because I
knew he was a winner, but I want to know what you think.
I'm not ready to say I'm wrong yet. I just think it really is the scorpion and the frog thing where I just really think it's going to end terribly poorly. But I'm fully prepared to be wrong about this. Because again, he's one of the most toxic players like I've ever seen.
Yes.
Um I guess if I mea culpa any of that, I do think on some level I got like sort of rage blindness because my recollection, and this is the thing you always need to remember, other than a few plays, he dominated Drew, but it's not like Drew wasn't right on him. Like,
No.
like it's Drew couldn't do anything with them, but that's kind of the history of the NBA. And look, I was mad, and I have to watch. Like, if I rewatched that stuff, I don't know why I'd rewatch that, but maybe I'd come away with a completely different opinion. Drew gacked all Drew. I think it's always been sort of unfair to Drew because Drew had to guard like this, the best wing, and Drew had to guard Chris's man and all this kind of stuff. But Butler destroyed him in a way. Like we said it at the time. Like it was it put him in the Hall of Fame. Like
Yeah.
he was in the Hall of Fame game 4 as far as I was concerned. And maybe I should have remembered that more. But again, like who are the other guys? Like nobody was pining for Kuzma, right?
It
Kuzma
was
was
Levine.
it was
Levine
Levine.
was the
It was
main guy
Levine.
that
It was
everybody
Levine.
wanted.
How's Levine
Yeah.
doing? He stayed with the
I
Bulls, right?
mean, no, he went to the Kings, and
Oh, that's
I
right.
think he's doing well. But
He went to
they just went to
Siberia.
he went to Chicago Bulls West.
Right. That's right. That's right. Oh, you're right. I wanted Levine a lot, didn't I?
But like,
Um,
Butler. So he, I mean, I haven't watched as much. I didn't get to watch Jordan growing up, but like, other than some of the LeBron performances I saw against the Warriors when he was on the Cavs, like some of those 50-point finals games, I was like, those Jimmy Butler games against the Bucks were the best performances I had ever seen.
yep.
Like it was unreal.
Hmm.
And that's I think what made us think great offense beats great defense because we're like Jimmy Butler just toasted the best perimeter defender in the league.
You're probably
Like
right.
so it's just that moment changed a lot of things, I think. But yeah,
And,
I don't know. I couldn't decide if I wanted Butler or not.
but again, as this one crumbles, it just shows how stupid I was. And frankly, this may be the same because again, I think again, I made everybody got mad when I made the video after Giannis said steps to success and all this. Although it's fairly well received, but like I'm criticizing Giannis or whatever. I've been protective of his ego because I think he's like sort of this weird version of a tryhard who kind of doesn't listen. Like at some point, somebody should have told him, quit trying to block people from behind. Like 5 years ago, you're going to blow out your knee. And, and mostly everything's worked, man. Like it's really hard to complain
Yeah.
about any of this. But I also didn't want Chris Paul in 2019 or whenever that was.
Hmm.
And it could be that the same reason I'm wrong about not wanting. Cause man, that version of Chris Paul was really good, and it's like funny to call him a loser, and he's a dirty, just a dirty like below the belt
Yeah.
punching like. But like that version of Chris Paul that was coming off playing with the Thunder, it was shocking how good he still was. Like late
Hmm.
prime, like pre-wash Chris Paul was still really incredible. Like again, they made
That
the
Suns team,
they
they
made the
were
finals with the
incredible. Yeah.
Suns, right? That was like a version of like that was like the 97 or 98 Jazz where they were like way past their prime, but like they made it. Like that's really what that it was like Chris Paul was pushing the team. So it could be that I was wrong about Jimmy Butler in the exact same way that I was wrong about Chris Paul, but we got our COVID championship, so like it all worked
Yeah.
out. You know what I mean? But
Thank God.
right. And like it really is shocking that like you look at game 1, you look at the first round, and it's like, oh yeah, I blanked out on all of that. The seats are covered in the first round against the Heat. Like, wow, what year was that? Was that last year? Was that 10 years ago? Yeah, I think I was wrong about that. But but it just could also be. I mean, again, because there's Draymond's in that locker room, right? Draymond runs the Warriors.
Is Giannis a big enough leader to to put Butler in his place as the second guy on the team? I don't know. Like, I feel like Butler comes in and kind of takes over, and it
Okay.
could have gone really badly. So
Okay,
it's tough.
but that was the analysis that I had. But like you being younger and you being, I would assume at least somewhat more invested in this. Like, and that's kind of what I was trying to say. I think I said some of this, but it's like, how would that make you feel if like he won a championship? Because then it puts a weird,
Yeah.
because you know what the first take people are gonna say. If it's like, I mean, it happens a lot in NBA history. Like Paul Pierce was the MVP of that finals, not Garnett. Like, I mean, that happens all the time, right? And it's a little bit different, but even I would feel a certain kind of way if we were all like Butler so much better than him in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that would suck. That would suck.
I wouldn't care for that,
So-
right? Like,
In 2021, I was like, if Giannis can't play in the finals, I don't even want to go to the finals. That's exactly like the same way I would feel if like Butler came in and was the best player and we were like, yeah, Butler's better than Giannis. That would suck.
and give him his flowers, because the incredible thing is not all those free throws. It's how he came off of that knee and then just started hitting fadeaway one-legged jumpers and dominating Ayton and
Absolutely
just
insane.
and knocking him over. Like he went insane for some of those games, and I think he kind of ran out of steam by the time we got to Game 5. Then Drew and Chris were kind of part of the crew, but like the way he approached that series, we were like, is he going to be limping? Is he going to be a decoy? Is this like I'm sure we said Willis is going to be Willis Reed coming out of the tunnel, and then he was just better than he's ever been. And like that's actually what we should remember about that series, and not
I know.
and not the free throws, but
Yeah, that series does make up for so many things. Like people can say he airballs shots, he's terrible at free throws, can't shoot, has no bag. The dude he put up 50 in the finals. He came back from I have a ton of knee injuries. So I totally understand what it's like. Dude's knee bent backwards and he came back a week later
It
and was
crazy.
playing
And was-
at full speed. It's not like he was just out there shooting jump shots. Like that would be fine. He's attacking and dunking off that leg. Still
thi-
blows my mind.
I think he made the first 2 field goals of the series for us. Like it was like immediately, like they gave him the ball and he
Immediately,
scored. Like it was crazy. Like everything about that. But you're right. I remember driving around at work, and it was just so depressed. I mean, again, this is the way I've always felt, and I'm a hater or whatever, but it's like I don't want to watch the Chris Middleton show. Right? Like I was think about how down we were Game 4 against the Hawks or whatever game that was, where he went down and we lost that game. I remember, I feel like I recorded right
Lowest
before that.
moment I've ever had as a
was-
Bucks fan.
It was awful. We got through the Nets and we thought the Nets were going to be this juggernaut. And we got them. We got them before they turned into the Heatles. We got them because everybody got hurt, and that's great. And then we choke away Game 1, and then I forget if we're up 2-1, and then we go to Atlanta, and then we like get stomped in Game 4, and Giannis gets hurt. And it was like, it was the most never trust the Bucks. It was the lowest part of any Rocky movie. It was the craziest thing ever. And oh,
I don't think I could sleep that night. It was it was terrible.
I was so mad. And I actually think I should have called in sick the next day at work, but I do think like part of like that championship was relief. So that's why I didn't cry or I didn't this or whatever. And there was kind of like, you're just super happy, but I was just relieved that we didn't blow it again. I was relieved that it wasn't the Raptors 2019 again or any of those other things. It was like, why? And it was a sense of disbelief. Like, I can't believe. And then we had the lead all of Game 6. So it was just like, you're just protecting the lead. And it's just like, feels like, it felt like the Packers up against the Niners in that playoff where you're just like, oh, we missed the field goal. That's going to come back. And it just kind of get close. And you just wanted the clock to tick as fast as possible. And yeah, man. So if we had to predict, it's been at least 5 minutes. If we had to predict, I'll just say championship because why not? But it feels like a second round loss. I mean, it just like honestly, I'd like to see what the second round looks like again. Like it's been a minute.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah, I think that's my most optimistic view is a second round against either Cleveland or Boston that goes 6 or 7 games. I think that's as far as we make it.
Yep.
But if we face New York first round, I think they're out.
It's bad with this whole thing where you're like, maybe we'll get a thrill. Maybe we can get up 2-1 on the Celtics, like 2022. Like maybe we can be up and and feel good for a couple of days. I don't know. Anything else you want to get off your chest, man?
That's it. I mean, I will say it is more fun as the underdog, so that's something we could look forward to. I just feel like it's the crowds going back to that finals after Game 4. Game 5 against the Hawks was the best. I was at that game. It was the best crowd atmosphere
And it was a great
the entire playoffs. Like I went to Game 3 of the finals, the first one in Milwaukee. It wasn't even close to that Game 5 against the Hawks when we were without Giannis. So that's what I'm rooting for. We're the underdogs. Got nothing to lose. Hopefully our horrible fans at Pfizer can stand on their feet and cheer, make some noise.
Yeah.
I keep teeing you up for like all the things that I know
for like all the
passionate
takes
about.
for like all the takes, so I can say that I'd trade the championship for like wearing purple or whatever. Yeah, no,
the
it's
pot will
good.
go on forever.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. We'll stop right there. Watch the Lakers game. Top 5 Gene Hackman movies.
I couldn't tell you a single one. You're talking to the wrong person.
I haven't seen all of them. I feel like people want to say Hoosiers. I'm going to say Hoosiers, Crimson Tide, Enemy of the State. I never really saw Unforgiven. Like I don't know. Gene Hackman for me was kind of like one of these weird ones where it's like people say he's a great actor, but he never really seemed like he's acting to me. He just seems like he was sort of yelling, and I think he was a compelling personality. But like, I'm not throwing shade on anybody who had like was like very well revered, but like I think it's just kind of lost in the generations where like people are like, oh, he's this great actor, and it just seemed like a serviceable like what's it like Robert Duvall kind of like kind of thing. Like I just know him as the old version, like the yelling version. Like, but again, I've never seen the Conversation or any of those 70s movies. So yeah, okay. So we'll say Hoosiers 1 through 5. At least you've seen Hoosiers, I'm guessing, right?
I have seen Hoosiers, yeah.
Yeah. The weird thing about Hoosiers is it's like it's the 80s portraying the 50s, but it's got like this synth score from like it's like got like a Zorgy kind of electric piano kind of score, which is both kind of I don't know. I like Hoosiers, but I've like haven't seen it in 20 years.
Yeah, same. It's been a while.
All right. Cool, man. Appreciate it. Where should the people find you, or do you want the people to find you?
Yeah, they can find me if they want. All right, I got a podcast, Talking Ball with B. I don't know. I don't post very often, but it's whenever I feel like rambling. And then Twitter, Brennan Olin. That's Brennan_Olin. If you want to follow me there. I make a lot of people angry, I feel like, but it's where you can find me. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. And the one thing I will say, and I wish more people would do this, or maybe more people do this, but I don't know. I always kind of liked how your podcast is for you.
Yeah,
right?
It's for me. Like, I know nobody's listening. To be honest,
nobody's listening to this either. I mean, it's fine, but
yeah.
I like the takes to be more honest to me, and the catharsis of it always kind of comes out when I'm listening to it. But like, because you don't put out that much, a lot of times I'm like, oh, he put something out 2 weeks ago, and I'll listen or whatever. But it's just kind of I like the homemade era of content.
Yeah,
and I think you've kind of one of the foremost guys of that. So hey, man, zip it up, zip it out. Probably as you're listening to this, the Bucks have beat the Lakers, and of the players only. I guess it's not a players only meeting, but the meeting has dividends have come from the meeting, and the Bucks have blown out the Lakers, and the Bucks are going to storm through the rest of the season. And Portis is going to come back with 3 games left in total shape, and everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be all right. But yeah, man, that's all I got.
all right, man.